Not 20% of the people knew we were running. It's a total blackout. I think we got 4 minutes on the national news in 10 weeks. And it was all devoted to how do you feel spoiling the Democrats. So we're dealing with a tyranny, a two-party tyranny that excludes competition in all kinds of legal and illegal ways. Legal because they control the state legislature and require, for example, 300,000 signatures here in California for an independent candidate to get on the ballot, because you got to get double the number because they disqualify so many signatures. When you don't have a competitive election, you're not a democracy, period. That's what it's all about. It's a duopoly, and they're strumming the tune of Wall Street and the military-industrial complex. So this book is designed to break it up, and it's a very short book. I've learned to pay attention to short attention spans of our present culture. And what's involved, let me just flip it. If I was a betting person and I could get a surety, I could say, tap one of those mega billionaires in Silicon Valley who has a conscience or enlightened, and for $1 billion we can turn the country around. So this is just a challenge. How would you turn the country around? Somebody gave you $1 billion in 36 months to do it. And when you ask students that at the best, quote, universities working in political science and anthropology and so, they don't have a clue how to answer it. I've had answers like, well, you increase voter registration. I've had answers like, you start a third party. They don't have a clue because they never ask the question, as Matt said, what if? If you don't ask the question, what if, you can't envision real possibilities. And we don't have a practical utopian culture where we ask the question, what if? What if we had 1,000 organizers full-time on the ground, 2 in every congressional district, and 10 or 15 on Capitol Hill in Washington to push full Medicare for all? What would happen? We'd get it. Because you have left-right support for that. It's cheaper, it's better, it's less anxious. You just need a card like Canada, and you're set. And you have a free choice of doctor and hospital, which you don't have with all these networks and all the complexities, mind-blowing exemptions, deductibles, complex deductibles, and all the nonsense that fritter away people's time and increase the anxiety level of millions of people. And then they don't end up getting health insurance covered when they need it. And you know how many people are working on that now? Full-time? My best guess, 0. They've agreed to settle it. You got a gridlock Congress, forget about it, you got Obamacare, now is not the time. 0. We would audit the Pentagon with $1 billion. You easily could get the Pentagon audited because it's violating federal law since 1992. The only department and agency that doesn't provide an audit to the GAO accounting arm of Congress. It's only $650 billion, not counting all the dark budgets a year. Therefore, they couldn't account for $9 billion lost in Iraq in the first year of the criminal invasion. The Air Force buys billions of dollars of supplies because they don't have audited warehouses that have those same supplies, and on and on. So how would you spend $1 billion? Here's what I would do. I would organize about 2,000 people in every congressional district. Because when you say, well, how do you want to change the country? Well, some of it we can do ourselves. We can put solar panels up, and we can eat nutritious organic food, and we can do this and that. And that's important. You practice what you preach, and you build awareness. But for better and for worse, Congress is the Khyber Pass. Congress is the most powerful branch of government, and it happens to be the most personal branch of government, and it happens to have a name on 535 people. And they put their shoes on like you and I do every night, and they want to get reelected. And it's nice to replace a lot of them, but if you had $1 billion, you wouldn't have to replace many of them. You just have to put the kind of pressure that on occasion we did in the 60s and early 70s, and change corporate members of the Congress into consumer and environmental champions, led by Nixon, who signed into law, EPA, OSHA, Product Safety Commission, wanted to give the vote to the District of Columbia, had a better health plan than Clinton did years later, and had a minimum incomes plan to combat poverty. He was way ahead of Congress because he feared the people. He feared the rumble of the people from the 60s. He was the last Republican to fear liberals. It was all downhill after that. So you would basically hire 1,000, couple thousand seasoned organizers, put them in every congressional district, and depending on who represents the district, it could be the 20% really progressive members of Congress. You wouldn't have to unload on them as much, but you would organize 2,000 people in each district. Every district has community colleges, neighborhood leaders, lawyers, teachers, technicians, good blue-collar workers who don't take mush for an answer, etc. And you would say, we want you to commit 200 to 500 hours a year around a transformational agenda, say a dozen directions, which I'll point out, and we want you to raise or contribute $200 to $300 a year to open up full-time offices of 3-4 people in every congressional district, so all this volunteer time connected with all the other Congress watchdog groups around the country can have full-time advocacy. All right, so that costs about $100 million to do that a year before it gets self-sustaining. So you got money left over. You got $1 billion. What do you do with the rest? You open up an in personam lobbying effort right on Capitol Hill. The most successful lobbyists do not have marches and demonstrations. I am all for marches and demonstrations. You get new people in, you get some reasonable press, and you arouse people's sense of possibility. But what happens when these marches and demonstrations are overwhelmingly on weekends and the energy goes into the ether? It's not focused laser-like on what? 100 senators and 435 members of the House. Now, the most successful lobbyists, have you ever seen a mass demonstration in Washington and San Francisco by the military-industrial complex demanding more nuclear subs and F-35s? They don't operate that way. They know everything about those 535 that's possible to know. Their votes, who owns them, who they play golf with, who the doctor, accountant, lawyer, clergyman, staff, they pump money in, and they have all kinds of dossiers. And they basically say, if you don't want a primary challenger, it's sub rosa, for those who resist a bit. And they get a majority. 1,500 corporations get a majority of the members of Congress, and they don't have a single vote. What are we doing out here? Reading muckraking books? Terrific documentaries? Golden age. Can't imagine how much of this country is exposed down to the iota by reporters, editors, organizers. And where's it going? Do you ever read the last page of these books? Jerry Mander, where are you? Yeah, Jerry, you know, and I like the book that came out called Not So Fast. It's a critique of technology and bad analysis of repercussions. The companies accentuate biotech, nanotech, artificial intelligence, other, medicines. They don't talk about the risks and all the other unintended so-called consequences. And I read the book. It's a really good book. It shows all the conflicts over 50, 60 years, worrying about the bomb, what happens when you get the bomb, it gets proliferated, worrying about all these other technologies. And the last page completely tailed off, left the reader with nothing. And that's done again and again and again. So where are we with massive disclosure? We're overwhelmed and overloaded with information. How about connecting knowledge to action? The old Ming Dynasty philosopher who said in the 14th century, I don't know, the wisdom of the ancients, how did they get this wisdom? No email, no fax machine, no telephone, no Facebook account? What's going on here? Listen to this wisdom. Quote, this 14th century, To know and not to do is not to know. End quote. Marcus Cicero, over 2,000 years ago, Roman lawyer. Freedom is participation in power. We define freedom as, get off my back, don't invade my privacy, don't assault, don't surveil. And that's freedom from. It's freedom to that we've got to demand. We don't have civic freedom in this country. We have personal freedom. We can buy the books, music, choose our friends, our clothes, what we want to eat. That's for personal freedom. That's not civic freedom. Dictatorships allow personal freedom.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you have an in personam crew. All they do is go up on Capitol Hill. That's all they do every day. The corridors weave their way between the corporate lobbyists. Get to know the staff, the reporters covering from back home, the senators, the representatives, the connections with the executive branch, etc. The kind of thing 360.org is trying to do back home. Do you know there isn't, to my knowledge, one person going up on Capitol Hill as we speak lobbying on climate change? That surprise you? All the environmental groups? Do you know why? It's called gridlock. They've given up for the time being. So they lobby EPA, try to help the coal pollution reg. They lobby the usual executive branch stuff. But Congress is like stasis. It's paralyzed. Can't get anything through. Total nonsense. I wrote a letter about 3-4 years ago to Tom Steyer, George Soros, and Al Gore. And they're all, big on climate change. And, they got a lot of money. And I said, put in $20 million a year and get 130, 140 people, really seasoned scientists, lawyers, public relation, organizers, whatever, to lobby Congress in personam on Capitol Hill every day. And to work the press, connect back home. You know what the answer was? Indirectly, through their staff. That's not where the action is. Really? When I go up on Capitol Hill, I bump into coal lobbyists, gas lobbyists, oil lobbyists, nuclear lobbyists. Somehow they think that's where the action is. All right, so what do you do with the rest of the $1 billion? Well, that's what we got to figure out. But here's what we can get in a 36-month period. You got to span an election. And you don't have to replace that many. Starts out 25% or so on our side from the get-go. Here's what we'd get. We'd get enough audit and pressure on the Congress, on the Pentagon, to de-bloat the military budget. The military budget is so crassly wasted, it staggers even a Nietzschean imagination. You wouldn't believe what's going on in terms of theft by the military-industrial complex. The waste, the duplication, the redundant weaponry designed for a Soviet Union era of hostility. We would smash most of the corporate welfare. That's a left-right support. See, the reason why we can win is I'm going to read you about 20 transformations that are supported left-right back home. And that's an unbeatable combination. You walk into a senator's office with 50 people or 20 people, and you say, we're conservatives and we're liberals, they turn pale. Because they can game the liberals, if you're a right-winger or liberal. They can game the conservatives. They cannot game a convergence. There's a book here by me called Unstoppable, the Emerging Left-Right Alliance to Dismantle the Corporate State. So they don't like Wall Street over Main Street. The right-wingers want to break up the big banks. George Will writes columns saying, if banks are too big to fail, they're too big to exist. And Ron Paul and Barney Frank combined before they left the House to go after the military budget. There's a libertarian, liberal Democrat. You can see it. The reason why we don't see it in the headlines is because the divide and rule strategy of 2,000 years or more by the ruling powers is to focus on reproductive rights, gun control, school prayer, those kinds of issues that, if they're not superficially divisive, they are genuinely divisive, ideologically or religiously, what have you. We would have a living wage. That would have slam dunk. You think the conservative workers in Walmart are going to fall on their axe and say, no, I don't want 15 bucks an hour. I like $9.50 an hour. I'm a conservative. I want to conserve the money that the CEO of Walmart is paying himself. $12,000 an hour, not counting benefits. By noon, if he doesn't take a restroom break, by noon on January 2, he's earned more than one of any million Walmart workers in a year, not counting benefits. That was an easy one. Gather uncollected taxes. The IRS is being squeezed, so every dollar they lose, they can't collect 10 bucks in taxes. What's the uncollected taxes? $400 billion dollars. That's not counting tax havens, and the shenanigans where GE doesn't pay any taxes because they've rigged the tax system. And they make billions of dollars and pay less taxes in dollars than one worker in GE. Billions of dollars in U.S. profits. We have a Wall Street speculation tax. How come we have to pay sales tax when we buy a book here, right?
Yeah.
Right? How come if someone buys tomorrow $100 million of Exxon derivatives, they don't pay a penny? Sales tax. And the volatility is fantastic. You're talking trillions of dollars in terms of derivatives. Tiny percent of 1% can produce hundreds of billions of dollars. The transforming into solar energy and efficiency from fossils and nuclear. That could be a transformational policy in place, 3% a year, as David Freeman has pointed out, used to run 4 public utilities, including SCUD and the TVA. 3% a year, in 30 years or so, we're out of there. No fossil fuels and no nuclear power plants. Allowing standing to sue. One way they get us is there's this ancient doctrine that if you don't have a vested economic interest, you can't sue the government because they wasted your money or they criminally invaded another country. And so that knocks the judicial branch completely out of the 3-branch concept of our government. And the government, they basically say, the judges say, well, you're just a citizen, you're a taxpayer, you have no standing to sue, you can't even get into the courtroom door. It knocks out a lot of challengers of the corporate state, which is what we have now. We have a merger of big business, big government, with the big government thirsting to resign or leave high government posts to work for big business. That's the Wall Street, Washington merry-go-round. Expand direct democracy, not just in California. 25 states don't have the initiative, referendum, recall, and there are other forms of direct democracy. So if our representatives don't represent us, they represent corporatism, for example, we just bypass them. And that has to couple with 2 other changes. One is campaign finance reform, public financing of public elections, so they can't use the California initiative against you, like the tobacco companies and others have tried to do. And swarm, we'd be $80 million of insurance money in Prop 103 in 1988 with $2 million, because we had the LA Times and others on our side. And we've saved California consumers $100 billion, according to the leading actuary, J. Robert Hunter. But that's a rare thing. Now, and the other one is, what are we doing giving away our public airwaves and monopoly cable license, getting nothing in return? I mean, to what level do we descend into the status of being saps? Right? We give the public airways 24/7 to commercial stations and quasi-commercial toadies like NPR and PBS. And they use it 24 hours a day. They use it 24 hours a day to decide who says what, who doesn't, who gets on and who doesn't. Most of it is entertainment and advertising. They take off the table huge voices of the people of concern about the depraved situation in our country, the deteriorating situation, self-censoring themselves to unimaginable profits. And they do it free. We charge them no rent. We're landlords. The FCC is our real estate agent. And they made sure Congress says, you get it free. You turn that around. You say to Congress, no. No, no, little boys and girls. From now on, you're obeying us, the sovereign people. And we'll show you how we're going to enforce that with summons, formal summons for town meetings regularly. You report back to us. We control the town meetings. We're going to have the agenda. You're just going to listen and study and go back and do what you're told. Because we have a left-right coalition, and we have the evidence and the humanity behind it. And so we should have our own audience network. Why don't we have 3 hours a day, prime time, where we charge them rent, and then all over the country, local, state, national, we have reporters, producers, modern production facilities, and with the cable stations, listen to the giveaway on this. We have 650 cited cable channels in this country. Each one more idiotic than the other. For a while, I'm told they had a chimp channel dressed up in clothes. I have nothing against chimps. I'm coming out with a fable next month called Animal Envy.